Hello, this is Roman Gabriel, and you are listening to The Grilling Truth.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Survive in Advance, brought to you by MyBookie.ag. I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I want to welcome in my co-host, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
Hey, Mike, how you doing? Pretty good tonight. I think tonight's going to be more of a version of Survive. There's not a lot going on in the sports world right now. It's been kind of a quiet week, with the exception of the NBA playoffs, that we really can dilly-dally around with a lot this week. I think a lot of things coming up here shortly with the draft and playoffs getting deeper in, and baseball season continuing to wind up a little bit. But this might be just a Survive version of Survive in Advance tonight. But as usual, you and I will disagree on something, and we'll come to blows. And we can always bring in one of our sit and duck guests if we need to save the show at the end here.
Sit and duck.
Yeah, I think I just scared off all three people that were listening to us.
Well, see, I think the people need to know that John Einreinhofer desperately wanted to be on the show tonight, but since you got so butthurt because I called him a co-host last week, that he's refused to come back on with us until Sunday.
All right. I'll change my thinking. Get John on the phone.
Our topics
we need more
tonight,
lawyers in the world.
Yeah, that's one thing we probably don't need. But our topic tonight will be how important are NBA coaches. And then the second part of that will be why great players don't make great coaches. First up, we're going to touch on the NBA playoffs a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the Cleveland-Indiana game last night, where LeBron James came out and for a quarter looked like the greatest player that ever lived. And still, at the end of that game, if the Pacers don't miss a wide-open three, that game would have been tied with like a minute and a half left. And I think when you look at this series now, I favor the Pacers in this series. I did before, but even more after they came back in that game.
Well, there's no doubt. And really, taking a look at all the playoff standings real quick, just to run through them all. I mean, Houston's up 2 on Minnesota. That's no surprise. Oklahoma City lost last night with the big three to Utah, which I think has a little bit of more of that Pacer Cleveland mix, although I think the Pacers are a much better team than Utah. I think the Pacers are a better team than Cleveland. Portland's down 2-0 to New Orleans. That's a bigger seed losing to a lesser seed. The Golden State, obviously, I think with the death of Popovich's wife, I think that team's in tailspin right now, and probably going to be done pretty quickly here. Bless the hearts of the entire San Antonio organization on that one. Toronto, watching up, putting up much of a fight. They're up 2-0. Philadelphia's in a dogfight right now. The game's on right now. It's 82-80 with Miami. They're playing at Miami now. So, you got a 3 seed against a 6 seed. This is a nip and tuck game. They're both very good basketball teams. You got some experience with the team and a lot of young collegiate mentality kind of talent with the Sixers. So that's going to be a very fun. I think that and Indiana that matchup in Indiana are probably Cleveland's probably the 2 best matchups to watch in the first round. Boston's cruising up 2-0 and doesn't look like they're going to really have any jeopardy getting through that situation before. I heard an interesting stat last night that 77% of the teams that win the first game in a best-of-7 series go on to win that series. And that was a statistic thrown out during the Pacers-Cleveland game. And, of course, Indiana won Game 1. The Indiana game, obviously, everybody's eyes on Cleveland. Cleveland is in a declining state to a degree. More weights being thrust on LeBron's shoulders. And certainly last night, a couple things of interest was that LeBron still proved he's the most dominant player in the NBA. I think a lot of things got proved. He's the most dominant player. He's the most protected player. And I still think the NBA does not want LeBron James sitting on the sideline for the remainder of the NBA playoffs. Case in point, and I don't think there's a conspiracy theory. I just think it's thought of Oladipo picks up 2 quick fouls, one an offensive foul, picks up another offensive foul in the first half. I mean, how many offensive fouls do we think LeBron James has gotten called for in his entire 15-year NBA career?
One.
And here, our top player picks up 2 in the first half and gets 2 fouls in essentially what amounts to about the first minute of the ball game. I at least give the NBA credit for not waiting to give Cleveland 25 extra free throws in the fourth quarter. They go ahead and start to take care of business right in the first minute of the ball game to make sure that this thing at least stays close, which it did. A lot of credit to the Pacers. They got down 16 points early, and then basically after they caught their breath and the announcers were talking about, Cleveland was going to come out hot. And I think LeBron scored, the first 16 points of the game for Cleveland? It was 16-0 Cleveland at one point, or LeBron at one point, or somewhere close to that.
Yeah.
And but then the Pacers really nailed it down, came down. I mean, Lance Stevenson continues to be an absolutely invaluable player for that basketball club. He's really got a thorn in Cleveland's side. And while he doesn't necessarily statistically do a lot, he just disrupts Cleveland a lot. He gets in their heads, and he does it probably better than any player in the league. And he has no fear of LeBron whatsoever. And, he probably takes LeBron out of his game just a little bit, as I thought happened after the onslaught of LeBron in the first quarter of the game. What do you think?
I just think from what I saw, the Pacers lost this game. I mean, they missed a lot of shots in the first 5 minutes because, let's face it, you can let LeBron go out and score 80 if he wants. They shut everybody else down, but they're still getting blown out because they didn't make shot themselves. And the thing is this, I thought the whole game, the exact same way you did, until you got to about a minute left, the Pacers are down by 3, and they actually called an offensive foul on LeBron, which then Oladipo come down and missed a 3. So I think
wide open 3, yeah.
I don't think it's so much that the NBA wants to see. I think when you got a guy like LeBron or Michael or Bird or Magic or Kareem, they get the benefit of the doubt because they are the best player. And I think that it takes a lot more to get a call against them than it does somebody else. And that's almost human nature. Because if you're an official, you still know what's going on in a game. You still know what your surroundings are. And I think a lot of times maybe the official's a little intimidated too. Because the thing I noticed is this. If LeBron gets on the official will stand there and talk to him about it. If Sabonis...
I noticed that last night.
Yeah, Sabonis, Lance Stevenson, one of these guys gets pissed. You see the official scream back at him, and then a player has to drag him away before they get a technical. The other thing I don't like about the NBA nowadays is this. A flagrant foul? I mean, if LeBron James is going to dunk, or if Victor Oladipo is going to dunk, I should have a right to wipe his ass out so he can't. That's the way I grew up. That's the way I think you grew up. I know that there was peach baskets and they had to knock the ball up with a stick when they scored back when you played. But we were close to the same time. And, I mean, Michael Jordan, when he was going for a layup against the Pistons, they'd wipe his ass out. And it made him, I mean, those were basically the Jordan rules they brought in for that. Now they protect everybody. And, I mean, if a guy is going up for a dunk or he's going up for a layup and you don't smack him hard, you could give up 3 points. So the foul they called on Sabonis, to me, he was going for the ball, and then he was making sure they didn't get the continuation. So how about this? Instead, you can still keep the flagrant fouls, but let's take continuation out of the NBA and make it like the NCAA. Because in the NCAA, you foul a guy, you don't have to mug him to keep him from scoring. But here, you almost have to allow him to score after you initially foul him.
Yeah, and a couple of points here. One is I thoroughly am disgusted with the instant replay of a flagrant foul.
Yeah.
They take time. The referee can't just see it and make it. I mean, okay, I get it, check whether he was on the line or not, or check whether his foot was on the three-point line or was out of bounds, or check who last touched the ball. I will buy that part of instant replay. But to go back and review, oh my, did he really, was that a flagrant 1 or flagrant 2? Now we're going to review how flagrant the flagrant foul call was. I saw that, and again, I have not watched a lot of NBA. I'm not a fan of the NBA. And I saw that, and I'm like, are you kidding me? They're going back now. Isn't that a judgment call?
Yeah.
I mean, at least the NFL does not review judgment calls. Pass interference is not a reviewable play.
I'll give you this real quick as an example. A place where it is the CFL. In the CFL, you're allowed to challenge a pass interference. The problem is, just like the Sabonis foul, when you slow almost any defensive back going against a wide receiver to slow motion, they're going to make some contact at some point.
Sure.
And it completely changes. Sport. Yeah, and it completely changes a lot of times who wins a CFL game. And at some point, you got to trust your officials to make a call. And if Sabonis would have hit him that hard, they would have immediately called it a flagrant foul. They didn't, because he just fouled him hard, and then he made sure he didn't make the shot. It's not like he punched him in the back of the head or he kicked him in the face,
right,
which is a flagrant foul. You know, just wiping somebody's ass out to keep it from scoring, there was nothing there that could hurt LeBron. Of course, LeBron drops like he was, shot by a .44 Magnum every time somebody gets near him, which we
the biggest, strongest 6'8" guy in the NBA, and he falls like a leaf off of a tree on a hurricane.
Yeah,
he just wilts to the ground. Come on.
And for all the people out there that sit there and say, well, he showed why he's the greatest player in the world in the first 10 minutes, I'm sorry, but there's never been anybody alive that has showed in the first 10 minutes of the game why they're the greatest player I've ever lived. The last 10 minutes of the games where you show you're the greatest player that ever lived. And when you watch LeBron's career, when you say, when was he clutch? You hear about a block shot against Golden State, which was a great play, and you hear about a fourth quarter he had a decade ago against the Detroit Pistons. Other than that, there's not a whole lot there at the end of the game. And I challenge anybody that says LeBron's the greatest of all time. I'd rather have Larry Bird, Reggie Miller, Michael Jordan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with the last shot than I would LeBron.
I can't disagree. There's no doubt LeBron's a great basketball player. I mean, but in my opinion, he's the most protected player in the history of the NBA. And in terms of everything we've just discussed and talked about, but going back to what you're talking about with tough fouls, I mean, in my day, you talked about when peach baskets were still up, it was pretty damn close. But
not really.
You got to call them as you see them. But I was always assigned to guard Magic. And the 5 times I played against Magic, when he was at Michigan State and I was at IU, Knight threw me on him. And Knight looked at me and said, "Hey, you're the most physical, athletic player I've got, and that's your calling for this basketball team." And dadgummit, I made sure that the hardest foul I gave Jordan or gave Magic every game was the first foul I fouled him. And he'd take me to the lane, and I'd put him down as best as I could, and I just let him know there's 4 more of those coming. And I fouled out.
And nobody thought anything of it. Magic probably didn't even think.
Yeah, I raised my hand before he hit the ground, and the refs were blowing the whistle before he hit the ground. I mean, it just got to be known that, and Magic would look, and he doesn't remember any of this, I'm sure, because I'm just a pimple on his rear end. But for me, it was, shutting down the greatest college basketball player in the game, or one of the two. And I took that as a personal challenge. And I knew the only way I was going to do it was to try and make him know that I was there and not just know the basket was there. And there was going to be some resistance. And so I think that the tough physical fouls are a part of the game. I do think a flagrant foul should be called when there's an attempt to not stop the play, but to hurt the player.
Yeah.
To hurt somebody. That's a flagrant foul to me. But to stop a play, when you talk about as physical as the NBA is, and the physicality of these players these days, you got 7-footers playing point guard. You got LeBron James, 6'8" and 250 pounds, playing wherever he wants to play. It's a physical ball game. And to have to go to a timeout to review a flagrant foul really, to me, does the game disservice. I mean, hard-nosed basketball, it's kind of like they say in NASCAR, rubbing is racing. I mean, sure, you penalize somebody who just takes your bumper out and wrecks you on the last lap just to wreck you, But to rub you and to say, we're going to fight for this piece of real estate, that's part of the game. And I know you're a coach in football, and I know you could tell me, and I know I've heard this from everybody, you could virtually call holding on every offensive play on a lineman if you wanted to, every single play of the game. You could probably find a hold somewhere in there.
Yeah.
If you wanted to mount a camera on every matchup on the offensive line, you would find holding on every play. But and you're right. In quarterbacks in football, I mean, there's going to be contact. You can't let a speedster run down the field in a football and with no contact, no defensive back can cover it. Can cover any great receiver. You couldn't do it. Not when the receiver knows where he's going and the defense just kind of guesses where he's going. You can't guard him. So I think that part of it, But anyway, nonetheless, LeBron came out and did what he had to do. I mean, he took the game under his wing. I think, the ticky-tack calls on Oladipo, well, I don't ever want to believe that professional basketball is fixed, and I never will go there to admit that or say that it is. It just seems kind of goofy to me that you take a kid coming off 32 points and heralded as one of the best newcomers in the game and gets slapped with 2 fouls in the first minute of the game and a third foul in the second quarter, and 2 of those are offensive fouls. And next thing you know, you're just letting the NBA's bona fide poster child run free in amok, and he's going to do his damage. Rightfully so. He still is the best player in the league. But your observation is good about where is he. Right now, at the end of that game, Oladipo had a wide open 3-pointer that he just missed to tie that game up. And, where was LeBron's assertion into that game at that point in time when he needs to be closing the deal? The question is LeBron the great closer that, say, a Bird or a Johnson or a Jordan was? Can he close the deal? He can start the game, and he can get you your lead. He's kind of one of those horses you jet out and, they tell you, hey, let him go. He's a sprinter. He's a sprinter in a 2-mile race.
And you'll catch him at the end.
Let him go. You'll catch him at the end. Just let him go. He's not your problem. And let LeBron get it. So I thought the Pacers did a good job. I think the Pacers are a better basketball team.
And they're better.
I think they're a better basketball team. They're better coached. Well, they're better coached by far. They're playing
LeBron,
more team
I don't
ball.
think LeBron's ever been that good of a coach.
No, I don't think LeBron's exactly, which is where we're going to go in a minute. I don't think LeBron's that good of a basketball coach either. And it's part 2 of our story is why we don't think great players make great coaches.
Yeah, and right now, you brought up the Boston Celtics beat up 2-0 over the Milwaukee Bucks. They lost their 3 best players. A lot of people were picking Milwaukee to win this series. But I think this is an example that you do need coaching. Now, maybe you don't need it if you got Michael Jordan or you got Larry Bird or one of these guys. Because when you look back, I think this turned into pretty much strictly a coaches or players league. In the 60s, you had guys like Red Auerbach, guys like that. Then you got into the late 70s, you had Magic and Larry come. And if you remember, I know you remember this because we talked about it last night, but Paul Westhead coaches the Lakers to the championship in 1980 and gets fired after the 81 season. The Houston Rockets, I believe, beat him in what used to be a mini-series, 2-1. If I remember right, Game 3, Magic choked on a hook shot, threw up an air ball, looked like LeBron James at the end of the game. Magic basically gets him fired and gets Pat Riley in. And then you had Michael Jordan, of course, gets Doug Collins fired in the late 80s. They replace him with Phil Jackson. So my question to you is this. Number one, do you consider a Phil Jackson or a Pat Riley a great head coach?
Well, let me preface that. You know what Pat Riley was doing before he became head coach of the Lakers?
He was the assistant.
Well, but before that.
He sold cars.
No, he was a play-by-play announcer.
I was guessing. I didn't remember.
Yeah, he was. No, I know. He was in his own book. He was a play-by-play announcer, and he reluctantly said he didn't think he could coach in the NBA. He didn't think it was coaching material. Magic and Bus talked him into coming on and being assistant, and then Westhead goes, and all of a sudden he's given the head coaching job. And do I think that those guys are great coaches? Well, how are you going to measure that? You're measured by rings. Yes, they are. if you measure by impact on a basketball game, I find it very difficult to believe that a $2 million a year coach is going to have as much impact on a game as a $20 million a year player, or that management's going to support that player. Where I think that Riley and Phil Jackson became in vogue or such great, they became Zen masters or babysitters, basically.
Yeah.
They were Zen masters in the sense that they could control the egos and they could appease all the egos on what was a player-dominated league in the 80s. That was a personality-dominated league. I mean, you look at all the players on the Lakers and all the talent that was on the Celtics and Detroit Pistons, for that matter, and the Sixers. You know, they all were very talent-laden basketball teams that basically had coaches that basically could just keep everybody happy. And if you ever watch a dichotomy of a huddle, the players aren't necessarily looking at the coaches. They're looking at the star player. Yeah. I mean, everybody's sitting there looking at Jordan or looking at Magic or looking at LeBron. Last night, I was kind of watching that a little bit because I knew what we were going to talk about a little bit tonight. They're talking to LeBron, basically, and the coach has got a clipboard in his hand and talking and doing things, but I don't think that they really were listening to him to the degree as they were like, hey, LeBron, what are we going to do? I mean, are you taking the ball? Are you going to sacrifice yourself here? What are you doing? What do you want us to do, LeBron? And so I don't know that in that time period that really the value of an NBA coach is what it is to a game in a high school game or a college game by any stretch of the imagination. Now, I do think that there's a tremendous amount of involvement from a coaching staff to be a successful team, but I think that almost the unsung heroes are the strategists, the video coordinators, the advanced scout people that go out and do the homework and see what offenses are being run and can break it down, looking at player tendencies. And it's probably that way for any professional sports team. You coach football at that level, you know.
Well, I think this. I think when you've got two types of coaches. You got a coach that is basically a game manager as a head coach, which then all the assistant coaches will make up their game plan. You'll take, if it's football, you'll have the defensive coordinator make up the game plan with the defensive line coach, the linebackers coach, the DBs coach. The offensive side will do the same thing. You'll basically manage the game. Then you got guys that are hands-on that'll coordinate one side of the ball or the other. Then you got a guy like Bill Belichick, who I think has a hand in everything that goes on. And I can tell you about me, the first year I was a head coach, professional indoor football, I hired an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator because I was told that was the easiest way to do this. So you just manage the game. Now, I get 6 weeks into this, and we're 4-2, and I don't even feel like I'm coaching the team because I'm not calling any play on either side. I'm watching these guys call it. I'll yell at them, tell them to change them from time to time. So basically what I did to remedy that is we were 4-1. When we went to 4-2, I fired the offensive coordinator and started calling the offense. And then I didn't fire the defensive coordinator. I kept him on as my main assistant, but I called the defense also.
Right.
Because I have to have control. Now, there's some coaches that can let that go and hire good people and let them do their jobs, which is probably the best way to do it. And there's other people like me who are obsessive compulsive and want to control everything, that think that whatever they want to do is right. Now, I had really good assistants, and if they told me something that I thought was a good idea, I would use it, but I wanted to be in control.
Well, I think a head coach should be in control. I think that's why he's paid the big bucks. I think that's why you have to have a vortex or a central figure of information flow. It all has to come into a funnel and then be disseminated back out. It has to flow both ways, and there has to be one person giving direction. I used to get frustrated when I was coaching either in high school or even in my AAU team when one of the other assistant coaches would get up and start trying to coach from the sidelines. I mean, I'd call timeout and just have it out with the coach. Hey, just either get off the bench or sit down and shut up. Coach during the timeout, say what you got to say, but don't do it during a game. The players need to know one place to look, one person to talk to. and one person to get information from and direction from. You feed it to me, I feed it to the players. Now, some will say that's insecurity. I say that's communication. Too many communicated channels, all of a sudden then misinformation starts being delivered or misinterpreted. But anyway, in regard to the value of an NBA coach right now, now what I think is happening is I think it's transitioning back. I think it started with Steve Kerr, Golden State. I think he started this thing of really building a team around the culture of a team concept. And certainly they had Steph Curry and they had great players on that club, but they played more as a team, and they went to the sidelines, and you can see the look in their eyes of looking at them, at the coach, like, okay, what are we going to do? You know, what's our plan? And Kerr would direct them, and they would pay attention to Kerr, and they'd go out and run what he had set up to do and run, and they ran it effectively because I think they had confidence in him as a coach, and he had confidence in his players, and they were able to manage it that way. The next coming of that now, obviously, is by no means Brad Stevens. And I think Brad Stevens is going to be the wave of the future coaches of the NBA, and I really think this is going to help save the NBA in the long run. I think that the culture of the dominant superstar player getting protected, the perception he is, whether he is or not, we want to believe that, and we want to use that excuse when our team loses. But there are just oddities that happen. But I think that with the culture being recreated now of building a great professional basketball team, not necessarily of huge stars, but where the concept of the team is the star, and you have great players. And Stevens is certainly the master at that. He proved it at Butler when he was there, and he's taken it right into the NBA and took the Celtics and turned them around almost instantly. And you're seeing other young coaches come into the league, that are able to start doing the same thing. Philadelphia is molding itself a lot in that same way. And I think it starts a lot with what Golden State did. It's a throwback to kind of like how I think the Bulls played in the mid-'80s. While they had a lot of superstar talent on that team, well, they had three great players, but they involved everybody on that team that played, even Will Perdue, and Cartwright, and the guys that supported the players that were on that team were valuable to that team. And I think that's going to make the NBA much more fun to watch going down the road, and you're going to see more great teams evolve, and you're going to be able to root for teams and not just single players. So as it sits right now, I would love to see an experiment done where you just put no coaches out there and let the players coach themselves and see if the game would really be any different than it is right now for a lot of these teams. And I think that may bite Cleveland in the butt in this series because I think that McMillan in Indiana has certainly fostered a team of inner workings among itself, created a culture of the team is bigger than any one part of the team. And I think the Pacers are playing hard. They're playing good basketball. They didn't really get rattled last night. They just didn't play well. They missed, like you said, they missed opportunities. They created opportunities. They just didn't capitalize on them as they should have. And I think you're going to see that wave transition more and more into the game.
All right, Steve, we're going to transition now, something really similar, but we'll bring up the fact that my favorite team is Cincinnati Reds, and they suck, and they fired their manager today, Brian Price, and now all of Cincinnati's in an uproar demanding Barry Larkin to be the head coach. So our topic, because I think it's probably a bad idea, because usually great players do not make great coaches. And I've talked about this on previous shows in the past few years. And I actually wrote an article for a couple places about it probably 4 or 5 years ago. And in the article that I wrote, I mean, for well-learned activities like taking a free throw or hitting a simple putt, there are no simple putts, Steve will tell you that. Or, playing a cadence that you've performed 1,000 times in the past. Thinking too much about that step-by-step process of what you're doing is detrimental. As a free throw shooter, Steve, if you're a great free throw shooter, you could just go up there and do the exact same thing all the time and shoot. You don't have to think anything about it. And when you do think about it is when a 90% free throw shooter misses. But it's not just trying to describe your performance that can disrupt it. I think skilled performers often have trouble putting their action into words in the first place. That's why those who perform at the highest level, I think, should think twice about trying to teach the skills they've mastered to other people. I had a scratch golfer that I talked to once, and I asked him to describe a putt that he just took and made. And he told me, I don't know. I don't think while I putt. So when your performance, which great athletes usually flows largely outside of your conscious awareness, your memories of what you've done are just not that good, which I think makes it really hard to describe to somebody how to do that, whether it's putting or, say, for example, you asked Michael Jordan what it was like to dunk a basketball. He would probably, invoke the Nike motto and just say, just do it. And not because he doesn't want to give away secrets, because I don't think he really knows how he does it. He can just do it, if that makes sense. I mean, I think legendary players, for the most part, are kind of born that way, Steve.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And obviously the great examples are Bird and Johnson and, are two guys that tried to become coaches. And, of course, we have to look at Bird took a team to the NBA Finals. But I think that even I could look at that and say that was pretty much within a few years after Larry had retired and the legend of Larry Legend was still there. And there was so much respect for Larry Bird that people just blindly did whatever Larry said, and he was able to motivate. But here's what I think. I think when you look at these guys like a Magic Johnson or a Michael Jordan or a Larry Bird or an Isaiah Thomas, all who have tried coaching at some point in time or another, they play the game at a level at which nobody else plays at. That's why they're the all-time great players of the NBA. And I think that it becomes frustrating for them that the other people can't perform at the level they can. You're right. They don't understand it because it becomes so natural to them that they have no explanation for why they play the way they do, other than the fact that they work hard and they're great. They're talented. They're more talented than anybody else. And they can't translate that down because they become more frustrated when a Magic Johnson can't get a Steve Risley to perform at his level. Because simply Steve Risley doesn't have the talent or skill sets that a Magic Johnson has. And then he becomes frustrated as a coach, and then he just wants to revert back to thinking as a player again, and he almost gets to a mentality of, I just want to suit up and go do it myself because I'm better at that. And I know for me, a lot of things that I do, not that I was ever great at anything, but there are many things I do when I just want to go say, I don't want to try and teach you how to do it. I just go do it myself. I love the competition. So that's why golf is such a fun sport for me now, because it just relies on me. I don't have to coach anybody. I don't have to tell anybody how to do it. I just have to use whatever skill sets or talent that I have, and I have to make my mind operate, my body operate in a way that my mind's thinking it should operate. And to translate that over into another player is very difficult communication to have, because one of the flaws there is one of the things I learned in the business world is one of the smartest things that coaches can do that many coaches don't do is they don't spend enough time learning how people like to receive information.
Yeah.
And there's a whole class on that. There's a whole class about what your personality type is. Are you an amiable, an analytical, a driver, or an expressive? And each one of those quadrants has a way that they like to receive information. Well, most of your great players are drivers. Okay, they're drivers. They are just give me the ball and let me get it done for you. All right, or just give me the puck and let me do it. And they don't have the ability to deliver information in a way that other players want to receive information. So therefore, you have a major communication breakdown almost immediately because you stop listening to what's being said because you don't like the way it's being delivered to you. And it was the greatest piece of advice I ever got about Bob Knight. Why they'll never make a 30 for 30 on me with Bob Knight, because Ken Benson said to me when I was coming into the assembly hall for the first time, he said, Steve, if I give you one piece of advice when you come to IU, don't listen to how Bob Knight's saying things. Listen to what he's saying. And if you can overcome how he's saying it and listen to what he's saying, you'll be successful here. And you'll never have problems with him. But if you get hung up on how he's saying it, you'll have problems with him. And I can almost largely in part go to most of the players that ever left Knight couldn't overcome how he was saying things. And that was the major downfall of Knight, because we can all tell stories of other coaches that had that ability that Knight, and were the same in practice as Knight was. Knight just brought it out in the games. And I mean, I have to verbatim for stories about other North Carolina coaches, UCLA coaches, Louisville coaches. And they all had this. We all have told the same exact same stories about what coaches did in practice. But there was such great advice that I got at that age, and it stuck with me. And so whenever I do something now, I try and understand what the people I'm trying to coach is, what their personality is, what their social style is, and how they want to receive information. Then it becomes incumbent upon me, if I'm going to be a great coach, is to be able to deliver information to that player in a way that player likes to receive information. Then he's going to absorb the information. And great players don't have that ability most times to do it because they're such drivers.
When you look at it, the players that were not great players are the ones that can, because they had to learn things to be enough to get by. I mean, Bill Belichick didn't play past high school or college. Vince Lombardi was a starting offensive lineman on the 7 Rocks at Granite at Fordham, was a really good college player, but he didn't play in the NFL. Bobby Knight, as you said, I think was the 6th man on an Ohio State team that went to 3 straight national championship games and won one of them. These are all guys that, Bob Knight had to learn the inner workings of things to try to keep up with Jerry Lucas. I mean, Jerry Lucas didn't have to learn anything to keep up with Bobby Knight because he was just better.
I'm a product of that. There's no doubt in my mind, as a person who loves the game of basketball as much as I do, that I would be a more successful, better coach than I ever was a player, because I was able to sit back and listen and not take offense to because of what Benson told me, and was able to process what he was saying. And then when I went on to my next career for 25 years as a manager in pharmaceutical sales, I was trained thoroughly on that same mission of learning how people want to receive information. And by being so good at that, because let me tell you something, coaching is X's and O's part of this game is not that hard. All right, there's only so many offensive sets you can have, only so many defensive alignments you can have. I mean, the whole premise of basketball is basically pick and roll, find the open man, spot up, get yourself in an open position, keep your spreading defensively, and block out and transition. That's anything else beyond that is icing on top of a cake in basketball. And it can be figured out. The X's and O's part of the game are just not that difficult. Anybody can figure out X's and O's pretty quickly just by watching some film and looking at player tendencies. But it's the ability to communicate what to do and what your knowledge of the game is and what you studied and what homework you've done to those players. And just great players are the worst at doing that because they're so used to doing things on their own level and everybody staying a level beneath them that people have always had to communicate with them. They've never had to communicate with anybody else. I can tell you a number of times in practice where I had Spalding written on the forehead of my head because Isaiah threw me a pass. I didn't even know Isaiah was on the court. And I wasn't looking because he was just that much better than me and could see things on a court that I couldn't see. And I just couldn't, I couldn't communicate with him at a level that I needed to early on and didn't have his talent to know and read his mind what he was doing. Now, eventually we figured Isaiah out. And when we did that, that's when we gelled and won a national championship. It wasn't so much that Isaiah figured us out. We figured Isaiah out.
Yeah, you guys caught up to him.
We caught up to him. And because he was so good, he gave us that freedom to catch up to him.
Catch him. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling you, the greatest coaching move Coach Knight ever made. We went to Iowa City one time and played and got our butts handed. The last game I ever lost was a Hoosier. Got drilled in Iowa City. We came back the next Sunday it was a Saturday night game. We flew back, Iowa City, came back Sunday. All of us got greased up and taped. We thought this was going to be the practice from hell. He's mad. He does not like to lose. Iowa doesn't want to lose on the road. We're making a run after a start of a crappy kind of season. We're battling back now. We're in a run for the Big Ten. And this whole season, Knight and Isaiah had been battling for control of this team. And they've just been wrestling in the locker room. They've been jawing with each other about what Isaiah thought we ought to be doing, what Knight. And we're sitting as players going, we don't know who to follow. Do we follow Isaiah? He's on the court with us. We follow Knight. He's in the locker room with us. And we came out. We thought, this is going to be brutal. Like I said, we all have Vaseline on our knees and elbows because we're going to do loose ball drills. We're going to take charge drills. We're going to get punished. We're going to learn to play hard basketball again. Knight came out and said, basically, to some degree, I don't want to use the phrase. The phrase was kind of that general thing, gentlemen, if rape is inevitable, sit back, relax, and enjoy it. And you got in trouble for with Connie Chung. Kind of almost said that to us. He did say it to us, basically. He went over, sat down, let Isaiah take over the team. We never got touched again. We never got touched. We never lost another game. The greatest coaching move Knight ever made was to stop coaching. Now, he coached. He prepared us. But he let Isaiah take over. And let us – and then we all just knew who to follow. And then we learned to communicate with Isaiah almost instantly because we were wrestling with – do we communicate with Knight? Do we communicate with Isaiah? And Isaiah knew that on that responsibility showed that Isaiah was great at being able to communicate with us. He knew each of us personally. He took the time to hang with us. Isaiah wasn't a true superstar that we never saw him except at the basketball court. He hung with us 24/7. He roomed with us. We all stayed in the same apartment complex together. We all went out together. And he knew us as well as we knew him. And he knew how we wanted to receive information. He knew who to get on, not to get on. And I think that's a rarity. But a lot of these great players come out and you think, oh, my God, Larry Bird or Magic Johnson, God, he's got to be a great coach. This man knows the game better than anybody. He knows the game as Magic Johnson, the player, not as Magic Johnson, the coach. Because he doesn't have the ability to communicate well with his other players. And that's kind of probably what LeBron is facing a little bit too, why you don't see a lot of the staying power. Players are always coming in and out of Cleveland. You ever notice that?
Yeah.
Players are not spending a lot of time. You take guys like Kyrie Irving that went out of there, guys that want to leave there. These are talented players. You think when you saw the Bulls, those guys hung together for their entire career. They stayed together. But you take a guy like LeBron who, struggles with being such a great player that he's not a great communicator, so to speak. And he proved it in the first quarter of the game last night that I'm just going to do it myself. Rather than involving his other teammates, he just did it himself. He just took the ball every time, and he took all the shots in the first quarter, basically. So that's, in my opinion, that's why necessarily you're not going to see very few great players ever become great coaches in the NBA. You'll see a lot of journeyman coaches, like a player like a Steve Kerr, who was a journeyman player in the NBA. He was a decent player, but certainly no superstar, not going to end up in anybody's top 50 all-time list in the Hall of Fame. But he will as a coach because he was able to study the game, understand the game, understood that he had to have more than just his talent to carry him to a career. And you can go back to Casey Jones, Tommy Heinsohn. You look at all the great Celtics coaches that were there. Don Nelson. Look at them. All the great Celtics coaches were all midline players, really, that really studied under Red Auerbach and learned how Auerbach coached. Because Auerbach was arguably the greatest coach in the history of the NBA. And so I think that the value of NBA coaches as they sit in the old world, I think, is diminishing. Popovich is obviously an exception to that. I think he really understands his players and got the most out of them by communicating with them and never over-expecting, but always listening to how Tim Duncan wanted to be coached. And probably nobody was ever better at that than Popovich, at understanding how Duncan wanted to play the game. And he probably got more out of Duncan than any other coach in the NBA would have ever gotten out of that kid. Turned him into one of the top 20 greatest players ever to play the game of professional basketball.
Top 20?
So there's a lot to be said. Top 10.
Yeah, top 10?
They're pretty damn good. They won a lot of championships. He's a pretty steady player for a lot of years.
Yeah, in a crappy
Not
time
flashy.
in the NBA too, though.
But he wasn't one of the but he was consistently good, consistently great. But what I'm encouraged about is the guys, the Brad Stevens of the world coming in here now, and a lot of these younger guys coming in. And I like to see. I think I don't understand the big value of hiring a lot of former players automatically. There are a lot of people that go to a lot of schooling and do as much work as a coach to become coaches as there are people who work to become players. And they do that for a reason. I mean, there are a lot of people that forego playing careers to become coaches because they'd rather be great at that. And we tend to sometimes overshun those guys for the sake of bringing a big name in who's a great player, and the team falters, bad draft choices, bad team chemistry, bad direction. What worked for the goose doesn't necessarily always work for the gander. You can go through a litany of cliches involved in that. But it does appear to be turning around a little bit now, and hopefully that trend continues, because I think that will bring the game of NBA basketball back to a game that's a higher level than college basketball, which is what we all hope it would be. That the game would be played similar to the college level of team play, but at a much higher talent level than what you get in college basketball. And I'm encouraged. It seems that all the games are selling out right now in the playoffs, which is encouraging to see. And I think we're in for a good run this year. You're going to see some young teams come up, and I'm not sure either Golden State or Cleveland are going to be in the finals this year.
Well, I think Golden State will. I don't think Cleveland's got a chance in hell of it.
No, I don't. I think Cleveland should be out this round. Now, whether it happens or not, I don't know. And actually, I think the Pacers may be the best team with the ability to beat them. They beat them 3 times, 3-1 in the regular season. I think if they get by the Pacers, they may get to the finals.
I don't think they will. I just don't think they're that good. I mean, when I look at it, they don't have a closer. I'm sorry, LeBron's not a closer. When they won it,
right.
Kyrie Irving was the closer. In Miami, Dwayne Wade was the closer.
The closer, right.
He's going to have to beat a closer. So if he's as great as a lot of people think he is, I expect him to be in the finals, because he will take over and he will take him there. But I don't think he is, so I don't think he'll make it there. Steve, we have a new Twitter page where people can follow us. You want to explain that to everybody?
We set up a Twitter page. You can find it either by searching Survive in Advance, or the actual name of the Twitter page is Survive the Magic. Now, how we got to Survive the Magic was I tried every combination of the world of Survive in Advance, and I'm number 1,457,000 on that list. So I took the word survive, and my Australian Shepherd Magic was laying at my feet while I was doing it. So I said, okay, let's put survive and magic together. And I got survive the magic, and lo and behold, it worked.
Now, let me ask you this.
We tend to think
when I pull this up, there's a hippo on it. Is that a hippo? It looks like a little hippo.
That's the elephant in the room, baby. I'm looking for a picture of an elephant. We are going to bring out the big elephant in every room. That's our motto.
Elephant, though, Steve.
I'm working on it. Okay, hippopotamuses are just as endangered as elephants.
Now, what's the trust me? I'm a Jedi.
That means we're always right.
Okay, I don't know what a Jedi is. I don't watch the Star Wars stuff.
Well, then you obviously know what a Jedi is.
No, I don't watch the Star Wars stuff.
Well, if you watch Star Wars, you know what a Jedi is.
I don't watch Star Wars because I'm a man. I'm not a little child.
Then how did you know that Jedis were tied to Star Wars?
Because I've seen the commercials where they have Return to Jedi or Return of the Jedi or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah. Okay.
It's all right.
So anybody has any suggestions, anything else they'd like to see, that's fine. But right now, we're going to talk about the white elephants, the hippopotamuses in the room, the big ticket items. And we're going to speak the truth. We're Jedi. Jedis don't lie. We'll tell you what we think. Take it, process it, disagree with it, please. That's why we created this Twitter page. Twitter page.
The Titter page. There you go. That's how we can make some money. We can have a Titter page.
No. We've already called people adverse names before. We're not going down that road.
Maybe Donald Trump will do some tittering on our page.
No, we do not. Maybe he ought to do tittering instead of twittering.
I think he's already done tittering. I think that's what got him in this mess.
No doubt. But we do have a page dedicated now just to this show because I am a webmaster. It took me 3 hours to figure out how to do that. And it's the third page I set up. I can't remember anything.
Maybe we can get Stormy Daniels as a guest.
No. We do not want Stormy Daniels on our radio show.
Yeah, we do. You know how many people would listen to that?
I wouldn't listen.
You don't have to listen. You just have to talk. We'll make her look dumber than she already is. Plus, she's not even that attractive.
Right. No, she's not.
If we could get Donald Trump and Stormy on, that would be huge.
Where did we go off on this tangent?
I don't know. I was bored because there was a hippopotamus there, and you were talking about an elephant, and I got confused. And when you talk about a hippopotamus, an elephant, and bring in titter, I think of Stormy Daniels.
There you go. Yeah, that's about all. That's about it. But we do have a Twitter page set up. We encourage you to follow it. We will post most of the stuff related to this show on that, including our schedule, our topics. Any questions you want to ask, I guarantee you I will answer them at all hours of the night.
All right.
You will get a tweet from me. You will get a tweet from me at 5 in the morning because it's only 2 in the morning in L.A.
There you go. And Steve doesn't get up till noon to play golf, so.
It's not entirely true.
Okay. Sunday, I know the NFL draft will be a topic. We're going to have a guest on to talk about that. John Einreinhofer will be back if he's not still offended because Steve said he wasn't a co-host. We'll just have to see how that goes. But John, I assume John will be on. We'll talk about whatever else breaks big at that point. And we need to, at some point, have a show on with the LeBron fan who thinks LeBron's the greatest basketball player of all time.
That'd be great. I'd welcome anybody who wants to come on and debate that with us.
So if there's anybody that's a LeBron fan that wants to debate that.
I mean, there's a legitimate argument there that he is. I mean, the guy's won rings. He's statistically a tremendous basketball player.
I know. If there wasn't an argument, we wouldn't argue it.
Right. There's a strong argument for it. But why are these people not coming out of the woodwork to defend him?
Well, we'll see. We'll see if anybody has the testicular fortitude to be able to come on the show.
Yeah, the interesting thing that's leading up to the draft right now is what appears to be the cleaning of the house of a lot of the high-priced veterans.
That's how it always is.
Salary caps.
So I get it seems
more.
It's just more high-profile guys now, but that's a lot of the reason why the average NFL player is 3.5 years. Because when you get to the fourth year, the second contract, you get more money. So if you've got a player that's going into the fourth year, but you can draft that position and pay them less, that's why you get those guys cut.
I mean, you see players like Dez Bryant being let go. I mean, Dez still had catches left in him. Brandon Marshall today was released by the Giants. Just players you think still are impact players in the league. But that's the other part of the equation. Do these guys that are players who we could buy for what they're worth and sell them for what they think they're worth, we make a lot of money off of them, so they eventually just price themselves right out of the game. There are the Peyton Mannings, the Tom Brady's of the world. That certainly, the John Elways, the Joe Montanas, and you can go down the list of the Emmitt Smiths that prove their value. But these other guys that come up want that same kind of money, the Brock Osweilers of the world.
Brock Osweiler, he's a legend.
Brock Osweilers.
He got Denver.
But they priced themselves. Yes, he did. He got Denver, and then Manning got the MVP, didn't he? No, he didn't get the MVP. No, he didn't.
Von Miller got the MVP because Manning didn't.
Von Miller got the MVP. Right.
Yeah, Manning threw a couple picks in that game. He just got to go up against Cam Newton, who's about the biggest overrated hype in professional sports. Luckily for him, he's black, so people leave him alone.
Oh, here we go.
But it's true. I mean, he completes 56% of his passes. He runs his mouth. He acts like a baby when he loses. But nobody's allowed to say a word about him because they don't want to be called a racist. Just true.
Okay.
It's true. And if anybody wants to debate that with me, we can do that too.
And that will be on a different show.
No, it won't. It'll be on this show.
Okay.
Because this is the grueling truth. Show. And we're not afraid to tell the truth here. Truth. Yes, it is.
It is the hippopotamus in the room.
Yeah.
So.
But
hippopotamus
in the room. You know, we got a possible place in Cincinnati that's going to do a T-shirt deal with us. So I think maybe what we should do is make some survive and advance shirts. People can buy them online. And what we'll have is we'll have a hippo, and his face will be Steve Risley, and it'll say the grueling truth, the hippopotamus in the room.
I'm all for it.
I also thought that we could, of course, since you bring it up almost every show, but you didn't tonight, I figured we would put out a shirt that would maybe have your face on the front, say Steve Risley, 1981 national champion. On the back, it'll say a rising tide raises all buoys.
Let's hope it does. Let's hope it does in this case. Let's hope it does. And we're not in college basketball seasons anymore, so my relevance is solely not dedicated solely to just being a national champion, a member of the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame, one of the top 30 scorers of all time in high school basketball in Indiana.
Here we go.
Do I need to go on down? Do I need? I've got my.
Well,
my
you know why you're in the top 30? Is it top 30 nationwide or just in Indiana?
Just in Indiana. Was there any place else but Indiana? Are you kidding me?
You
Who
live
else
in
plays
LA,
basketball
Steve.
besides people?
You live in LA.
Well, that's because I tried to bring the culture out here. So
and how about this? Have you been to a high school basketball game in LA?
Yes, I have.
Was the gym the size of a junior high or elementary school in Indiana?
Yes, it was the size of an elementary school. I was amazed. Yes, they had vending machines for concession stands.
So did you go watch the White Shadows team play?
No, I did not watch the White Shadows team play.
You remember the White Shadow, don't
Where? You? Yes, I remember the White Shadow.
Ken Reeves. That was one of the greatest shows ever created.
Yes, it was. It was a good show.
I like that show.
He died. He passed away.
I know. But you'll have to go to a game at Carver High School and report back to us.
No, I'm not going to go to a game at Carver High School. Nor am I going to a game in Compton. No, yeah, I'm not. Yeah, that's where he coached at. I'm not going to a game in Compton either. So
why not? That would be fun.
I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay in the Valley where it's safe.
Oh, I think it'd be fun for you to get a game in Compton.
Oh yeah, sure.
You don't watch wear the news red or blue. If you wear red or blue, you could have problems, is what I hear. But
those gang.
Yeah, you don't want to be a blood or a crip because somebody will bust a cap in your ass. They won't even care that you're one of the 30 greatest high school players in Indiana history.
Yeah, I'll be one of the dead.
And actually, I read, I think it was ESPN did a top 100 poll, and they only had you at like number 99.
I'm in that one too.
99, no.
No. I was 72.
Yeah. I thought it was 99.
Well, I may have dropped. I mean, there's more kids that come out every year that are better than me.
I don't really have a clue what it was. I remembered you were in it, but I don't remember where. But
I've got the one printed out that says I was number 72, and I'm sticking with that one. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, I wouldn't even use that article. I just used the one that had me in the top 30.
Yeah, well, that's just scoring. That's probably gone by now too. So,
well, if you want, I'll write an article about the 10 greatest Indiana high school basketball players. I'll rate you.
No. This show is about the grueling truth.
Okay.
Mike.
What?
Mike. Philadelphia won 128-108. They won big.
They blew them out in the fourth quarter. Then
blew them out in the fourth quarter. Outscored them 32-14 in the fourth quarter. So the Sixers are up 2-1 on the Heat.
And
I see the Sixers as having potential to get to the NBA championship this year.
Oh, I think they got the potential to win it all if they get everybody healthy. If Embiid comes back healthy, I think they've got a shot.
Yeah, well, not this year. This year, I think they can get to the championship this year.
But if you get there, you got a chance. You never know.
You're right, you do. Not against
according
Golden
to who
State.
they're playing. I mean, you could get Golden State get upset. Houston could get upset. I don't think both of them will get upset. I think it's going to be one of those two. But
one of those two is going to make it, yeah.
Yeah, so I would.
I think they're the two best teams in the NBA right now. So
Golden State.
Houston and Golden State are the two best teams in the NBA.
Yeah, I think Boston would have been your Eastern Conference representative if everybody would have stayed healthy.
Yes, had they not had been decimated with Kyrie and with Gordon Hayward.
But luckily they did, so our Pacers still have a chance.
We have a chance. So.
All right,
Mike,
Steve,
why don't you sign us off before we get in any more trouble? We're already in.
We're not in any trouble. But,
all right.
I mean, who's going to fire us? All right, so make sure you follow us at
the FCC will.
No, they won't. John Einreinhofer, our lawyer, has expressly told me that only counts when you're on the radio. We could be on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, anywhere you find sports podcasts, you'll find us, and the FCC cannot do a damn thing about it. So, for Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak, and the FCC can't do a damn thing about it.
And we